All right, number 20. Let's start with part A here. The cotangent of the inverse sine of negative 1/3. Okay, you have to remember that for inverse sine, remember that it lives between negative pi over 2 and pi over 2. And if our answer is negative here, that means that we have to be in quadrant number 4. So I'm going to go ahead and draw a picture in quadrant number 4 and call this my angle theta. And what I know about this theta is the angle whose sine is in ratio of negative 1 to 3. So that means that this has to be our negative 1 value. This has to be our 3 value, our hypotenuse. The reason I know this is because if this is my angle theta, then the opposite has to be negative 1. The hypotenuse has to be 3 because I am in quadrant number 4 because my angle was negative. That being the case, I don't know what this side is, so I need to go get it, okay? So I'm going to call it just x for right now. So x squared plus negative 1 squared has to be 3 squared. So it turns out that x is equal to 2 rad 2 when you do all the work, okay? So this is equal to 2 rad 2. So now I have the triangle drawn in the right quadrant whose angle, the angle whose sine is negative 1/3. So I know that this is a value of 2 rad 2, this is a value of negative 1, this is a value of 3. What I want is the cotangent of that angle, okay? So the cotangent of this angle is going to be, instead of opposite over adjacent, it's going to be adjacent over opposite. So the cotangent of this angle is going to be negative, or it's going to be 2 rad 2 divided by a negative 1, which is just negative 2 rad 2. So that means all of this stuff, the exact value is negative 2 rad 2. All right, let's take a look at B for right now. So remember, inverse cosine lives in either quadrant number 1 or quadrant number 2 because it has to be between 0 and pi. So if this is a negative answer, that means that I'm in quadrant number 2 because cosines are negative in quadrant 2. So if I were to draw an angle in quadrant number 2, okay, and call it theta, and I know something about this angle, I know that its cosine has to have the ratio of negative root 3 and 2 because that's the adjacent to the hypotenuse. So that means that the missing side over here is a value of 1 when you do the Pythagorean theorem, or you can just tell that. So we want the cosecant of this angle, okay? So the cosecant is going to be 1 over the sine. So if the sine is equal to 1/2, because it's the opposite over the hypotenuse, then the cosecant has to be the hypotenuse over opposite, which in this case is a value of 2, because it's over 2 to 1. So therefore, the cosecant of the inverse cosine of negative root 3 over 2 is just equal to 2. All right? That's a tough problem.